So if you're watching this film on Halloween, but it's sadly raining where you're at, and you hate the fact that it's raining on Halloween, just remember, it can't rain all the time. Welcome to my Halloween month reviews, and for this video this time around, we are going to be covering a comic book movie for Halloween. In particular, a movie that takes place a day before Halloween, and that movie is The Crow, directed by Alex Proyas, and it stars Brandon Lee as Eric Draven. In this film, Eric Draven and his fiancée Shelley are murdered by this gang, and Eric gets thrown out the window, and a year later, a crow brings Eric back from the dead, and he's immortal now. Whenever he gets shot or stabbed, he won't die. He can heal up pretty quick. And Eric Draven goes out for revenge to kill this gang that killed both him and Shelley on Devil's Night. It is based off of a comic book by James O'Barr, and is a very tragic movie. Not just with the story itself, but what happened behind the scenes. Even though this is a movie that made Brandon Lee popular, it's also one of the last films he did before he died. And they were still making the film after he died, and they had to continue without him and add like a stunt double for some of the scenes that Eric Draven is in, while they also have to hide his face. And when this film first came out, it gratefully still became a big hit for both critics and audiences. A lot of people loved the style and tone of the film, and they loved Brandon Lee's performance, and it spawned a lot of sequels. But none of those films, including the remake from this year, have been as good as the original film. And it's one of those revenge stories where you learn more about the character Eric Draven, and you buy into his backstory, and you do get to feel bad for him throughout the film. And a lot of people love to praise the film for that dark tone and Brandon Lee's performance, as well as some of the song choices in this film, which gratefully do match the tone for the film, because most of the songs that they play in the background are very dark and gothic, and they surprisingly match the tone very well. And the song choices that they choose for this film don't feel out of place or distracting or ruin the tone. In fact, they actually make the tone a lot better. And there's that one point when you hear the song "It Can't Rain All the Time," it will be stuck in your head for a while, and you'll be quoting it sometimes. What also makes the tone and the style work for the film is how they make Detroit look in the nighttime scenes, making it all look hellish with fire happening in some places, and it's filled with horrible people, with some good people as well. Like you have Ernie Hudson as a cop that does help Eric from time to time, and he does become kind of like a protege to Eric Draven for the rest of the film, without getting into spoilers. And of course, there's a little girl named Sarah, played by Rochelle Davis, where she's a friend of Eric and Shelley's, and she's having problems with her mother, and she's kind of getting addicted to drugs because of one of the gang members. And Alex Proyas did a really good job making this film feel more dark and gothic, with the sets and the tone and the style. And I kind of wish he did more of that with some of his other films. He had some of that with another movie called Dark City, and he's had some different films that went in a different genre, like sci-fi, movies like I, Robot, which he has made some films that are sci-fi that are decent, but I actually like some of his more darker films more, especially with his film Dark City, which I do recommend watching that film if you haven't yet. It's a really good sci-fi and dark gothic movie, and when it focuses on Eric Draven remembering more about his life with Shelley, it gives a more emotional tone, especially when he's remembering moments that they had together before she died, and it gives more of a darker tone when he remembers the terrible moment that he had with Shelley when they were assaulted and she was violated and then later murdered. And when you see all that happen, you actually root for Eric Draven to go and kill these guys that assaulted her and killed him as well. Now let's talk about Brandon Lee as Eric Draven, who is also Bruce Lee's son. That's right, he is the son of the famous martial arts actor from the 60s, and his performance as Eric Draven is easily worth watching. He is phenomenal as Eric Draven. He gives the character emotion, making him feel sympathetic, and gives the character charisma as well. And every time I watch this film from beginning to end, I feel sad knowing that we're never gonna get another Crow film with him in it. And to this day, Brandon Lee is still the best version of Eric Draven and the Crow we have gotten in film, which that one's also really sad because this movie came out in 1994 and we had a lot of other actors play the Crow since then, and none of them have topped Brandon Lee's performance. Now granted, it's to my knowledge because admittedly I haven't seen any of the Crow sequels or the remake. I steered away from those because I heard that they weren't very great. I've always stuck with this film. So let me know, are the Crow sequels and the remake worth watching, or should I just skip them? Let me know that in the comments below. And I know this because when you think of the Crow and Eric Draven, you think of Brandon Lee instantly. It's impossible not to. The action sequences are a lot of fun, and some of them are martial arts from Eric Draven, which would make sense because Brandon Lee's father, Bruce Lee, was known for doing martial arts in his films. But since they filmed the rest of this film after Brandon Lee passed away, you can tell that they were trying to hide his face from some of the cuts that they would use for the action sequences, or when they use a body double for him, or when they just cover his face so that you wouldn't tell that it's a different person. And you can kind of say that The Crow from 1994 was The Matrix before The Matrix 5 years later, which I'm not saying The Matrix copied The Crow at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just seeing a coincidence because you have characters walking around in black leather and clothing, and some of the action sequences do look a little similar. Now, since I've been praising this film for Brandon Lee's performance and the dark tone, I am unfortunately going to talk about some of the flaws that this film has, because I'm not going to say that this is a perfect movie, because it's not. It has some issues, and one is the one I said earlier, is that they use a couple of quick shots for some of the action sequences, which I get why they did that. I get why they put that in the film. It can just be distracting at times, and can also hide like some of the stunt work that some of the stuntmen are doing throughout those action sequences. Another issue I have with the film are some of the villains in the film. They're very over the top and hammy, and obviously that's what they were going for. That's obviously the type of stuff that they were going for with the villains of the film, but at times their over the top performances can kind of mess up the dark tone that this movie is going for. Fire it up! Fire it up! Fire it up! Fire it up! And these guys don't really have much of them as characters at all. They're just horrible people that want to kill people and want to kill Eric Draven. And there's nothing else about these villains that are interesting. In particular, the leader of the film, played by Michael Winncott, who does give a very good performance in the film, but his character is not a very compelling villain. You really don't get a whole lot out of him. You get some parts of his backstory with a member of his family, but they're only in like a couple of parts that are just like sprinkled out and barely mentioned. And besides him having a really good performance by Michael Winncott, he's still not a very interesting villain, unfortunately. So yeah, the villains are underdeveloped and they're very hammy, and there are some parts in the action sequences that are very quick cutty, and admittedly there are a couple of VFX and visual effects that don't hold up anymore. But The Crow still holds up very well with really fun action sequences, good acting, a dark and gothic tone for the style, and song choices that mix very well with the tone, and a standout performance from Brandon Lee. If you have not seen The Crow yet, I do recommend it if you want to see a more darker take on a comic book film. It's also a great movie to watch on Halloween. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, and this movie is also one of my parents' favorite movies of all time. I'm gonna give The Crow an A-. So guys, if you have seen The Crow, what do you think about it? Do you think it is a great movie, or do you think that this film doesn't hold up very well? Let me know in the comments below. And we are not done with these Halloween reviews just yet. I have one more video to post for tomorrow, so look forward to that. It's gonna be posted on Halloween, and this time around, it's gonna be a fun one, and I think it's gonna be one that you will be excited for. And as always, if you like this video and my Halloween month reviews, then please leave a like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a thing, because it helps my channel grow. Hit the notification bell so you know what other videos I'm posting. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.